Japanese prehistoric time is composed of these three periods: Jomon, Yayoi, Kofun. In the beginning, it sounds a little strange and unfamiliar, but throughout the semester, you will master it. If you look at the terms and definitions, there are explanations of these words in its literal meaning. So Jomon, it literally means cold marked. And I'm going to show you images what cold marked means. So Jomon is equivalent to Neolithic period of other civilizations, Neolithic period. And then Yayoi is the equivalent of bronze. They're moving into the bronze. And then Kofun period is equivalent to Iron Age. So people can use iron tools. Why do we call this period as prehistory? Right? It comes down as late as like even 7th century. And why is this still prehistory? That's because we don't have written records. We don't have written histories. We all have all we have is archaeological evidence. That's why it's called prehistory, before history is written. In Japanese history, history starts with Asuka period. It's in unit 2. So this one shows the map of ancient and medieval Japan and Japanese first settlements, as you see here. Jomon, Yayoi, Kofun people start from this area. This is Kansai region, a wide open field. Japanese Neolithic civilizations from here, and usually along the coastlines. Jomon period, this is what I mean by cold marking patterns. Jomon period, in terms of artistic expression, we are going to study a lot of these. It's called Jomon pottery. And then they are like a cone-shaped bottom. They usually have this type of patterns on the surface. From art historical perspective, we consider these deliberate effort of adding patterns is artistic effort. So in a way, it's an artistic expression. And there used to be a lot of theories how you can add these patterns. What archaeologists found was they didn't use a pen or stick. What they used was this woven cord or rope. They used this rope in order to create a uniform patterns. So you have, for example, a wooden stick, put the woven cord into this X, shape, and then you roll it together, then you get the diamond shape. It's jomon. The word jomon is literally referring to mon is a pattern. So jo means cord, like a twisted cord. That is Jomon. Eventually, the climax of Jomon pottery is this flameware. They are going to make this really wonderful, like a flame shapes on the top. The body or the surface, you still have a little bit of Jomon patterns, but on the top, this is more like they shaped it, right, with their hands. Neolithic period, we don't think they used pottery wheel yet. So maybe they used the coiling, like a Play-Doh period. You make a little, like a thin, snake shaped of clay, and then you coil them like this, right? And then you pat the surface and create this kind of pattern. To begin with, they have some animal imitating motifs, like a snake, like a handle, right? Or you've seen a figure, like people think it's probably referring to a human figure. Sometimes if you see this, these are very important work. So these are all Jomon patterns. Cloth or ropes are rolled over. And then they have some like a flame ware, like a flame-like decoration on the top. Or this is very important word, dogu. Dogu, referring to clay figurine from the Jomon period. So dogu. They made a lot of small human figurines like this, almost like a Paleolithic goddesses of European civilization. A little bit more elaborate ones. So these are all Jomon period. Japan, they started to make lacquer as early as 1000 BCE. This one is not wooden bowl. This is earthenware, meaning they were clay vessel. They baked it, but on the surface, do you see the black part? So the black part is the lacquer. There is lacquer tree. Like people always wonder, where do you get the lacquer, like the varnish type of clear, lucent material? There are lacquer trees in Japan, China. So from the lacquer trees, you get the tree sap. You usually you want to add a little bit more color, so they use ashes. So Yayoi period, they are moving into the Bronze period. And as you can see, in terms of Common Era, they move from the before Common Era to Common Era, yeah, right? Like where we are living. So that's Bronze Age. We find a lot of these archaeological artifacts made of bronze in Kyushu Island, but some of them are not made in Japan. Japan was trading with Korea. Japan usually provided this magatama. It's like a kama shaped or teardrop shaped stone. They gave it to Three Kingdoms period in Korea. Then Korean people may provide some bronze daggers. These are all bronze daggers. You can connect it to a wooden stick. And all of these materials are ceremonials. Bronze is not as strong as or as hard as iron, so this is more like a status symbol. We find this a lot in tombs. So this is what we found in Japanese tomb. So this is what Japan made. You can see the shape. It's more like a mandolin or like a violin shape, but these are different, right? It's either tapered, made in China, like a northern region. These are usually made in the southern part of Korea, like this. And these tapered one found a lot over here. So these are not Japanese. Japanese daggers look like this. In Yayoi period, like any other bronze civilization, they started to have a ruling class. Each group had some rivalry with the next village, so they made watchtowers. And again, in Japan, this raised platform has important meaning. It's very high up there, and then sort of a fortress they cannot climb up. And then people were living usually by the river, a small brook, so that provides water, right? And then you also not very far from the ocean. And this is elevation of a Yayoi raised storehouse. The shrine, their prototype could have come from this Yayoi period raised storehouse. Any leftover fruits, grains, you store them in a raised platform like this. Japan also has a lot of rains. So even though you have rains, eventually the rain is drained well. Dotaku is another important word. And this is a bell, bronze bell. And this one is 16 inches high. And inside you have a little bowl, right? And then there are little holes. So the vibration or sound is released through the hole. And then on the surface, there are some symbolic motifs, animals and plants. Yayoi period, they now can make smooth surface with the colors. Depending on the clay, which include a lot of copper, can create a little bit red color patterns like this. And then finally the Kofun period. And Kofun means old tomb. From the Yayoi period, there was class distinctions, right? Like a ruling class and working class, and then obviously some like a slave type of humble people. And then if you come to the Kofun period, now you are going to see emperor. Like you really see generations of ruling class. And emperors during this period up to 600 CE, they made large colossal tombs, and that's why it's called Old Tomb period. So how large it is? It's like this. This is tomb of Emperor Nintoku in the middle of the city of Osaka, and you can see like it is really the whole size of the district. Often it's called a keyhole shaped, like a keyhole. If you have an old house, you have this type of keyhole. What is important for this tomb is they made a series of terracotta or clay figures and then placed them around the tomb. So it's called the barrier treasures. And these are all called, this type is called haniwa. And hani means clay wheels. Clay wheels. You can see that cylinder forms, right? Like you make a cylinder forms, cylinders, right? Like and then you conjoin them together. They either use pottery wheel or they use the clay slabs. So that's the Kofun period, Haniwa. It comes in a little bit more figurative forms. A lot of houses, so that's referring to the village. And then a lot of dancers or singers, like entertainers. So these are dancers, more like shield shapes or sun shapes, a little bit more symbolic shapes. A lot of figures. These are considered shamanists, a female shaman. And then warriors. Obviously, who's going to protect the tomb? Warriors. If you see the armor described with the clay, they are not very different from the Kamakura period armor that we have, from the museum collections. We have armor, like the whole set of armors from the period as early as the Kamakura period, like a 12th century one. It's almost identical. From the end of Yayoi period, the Japanese people developed military culture, right? Because they are competing with another tribes or groups. But one important element is you are going to see a lot of holes in Haniwa figures. Like even here, you are going to see holes. And the reason is this is a reconstruction. So, on a large tomb, you are going to place these Haniwa figures on top of the base. Again, it rains a lot, it's properly well drained. They kept dry after raining seasons. They are sort of a terracotta. Terracotta means they were baked at a relatively low temperature. You have a lot of them. Animals, bronze mirrors, again, the magatama or curved beads. And then sometimes they see these earrings. Again, these are imported from Korea, like a Three Kingdoms period. They were trading. And then they even had some tomb decorations with painting. So again, you can see the warriors, horses, right? And some trees. As late as the 7th century, you're going to see the dragons, like a Chinese-style cardinal symbols, like a directional symbols in the form of animals, dragons. And this is what we are going to study later in Asuka period.